And I forgot to push that before you guys started. My apologies.
No worries.
Okay. Yeah, it's totally fine. So I think to kick things off, now that you know us, and we're excited to get into kind of just the nitty-gritty of the program and answer any questions you have. So I think to start off, we always like to just share an informational video that gives lots of different aspects of the program from scholars that have gone through it themselves. So Patty, if you're able to share that video, that would be amazing.
Absolutely. Just give me 1 second. I think I downloaded the video, which might be a little bit more helpful. Okay. Sorry about that.
Oh,
Can everybody see?
Yep, we can see it.
Wonderful.
One of the biggest things that was coming across in feedback and in peer reviews that I had with other young architects or aspiring architects was that they wanted to become leaders and they weren't really sure how to gain those skills and have that training to become a team leader, to become a firm leader.
And I thought many other people other than myself would benefit from having a program such as CKLDP here in Detroit.
As a scholar, what I felt was really great about the program is that you take 16 individuals from different walks of life, different firm sizes, small, medium, large.
And I feel like there's not really another opportunity that really gives you that professionally diverse group of people. It's been really great to go through the sessions, bounce ideas off each other, and learn from people outside my office on a regular basis.
For anyone who is thinking about applying for the Christopher Kelly Leadership Development Program, I just gotta say 2 words, do it. It's an absolutely fantastic program that challenges you, it inspires you.
Because we are in charge of putting together the sessions and developing the program, it's always going to be different from year to year.
It's cohort driven, and whatever you want to see happen, you can make happen.
Christopher Kelly has been a tremendous opportunity for me to explore different topics that are all under the umbrella of the profession.
We had so many different people come in and teach us about our own profession and teach us about our community and our responsibilities, and it was absolutely amazing. It's something that I wish I had had when I first started the architecture profession.
I would say one of the more beneficial aspects of Christopher Kelly Leadership Development Program would be the camaraderie and the connections you make. And not just connections with professional industry leaders, but with your cohorts as well.
The biggest takeaway I found is the exposure. The exposure to your community. The exposure to the people who is in the same industry like you and who's also seeking an opportunity to grow and develop themselves.
And it's given me a proactive stance towards the change that the industry is starting to see. And I think that we can meet it head on and collaborate effectively to have a positive outcome for everybody who's involved with this change, whether it be a project or something with technology. I think it's a really good forum to start having these discussions and find your voice so that you can share your ideas and be part of the change rather than receiving it and being retroactive.
If you want to hear a variety of different speakers from around the country, and also if you just want to learn more about where the profession is going.
This is the first year that we've gone statewide, and it's been pretty successful.
I hope that there are more people from Grand Rapids and other cities around Michigan that apply for next year's program, because I think that the more connected that the local chapters are, then the stronger the AIA Michigan chapter will be.
Your network is your net worth, and I think just getting the chance to, go across the state and meet with experts has been a huge value to me.
The CKLDP is truly an experience, and there's nothing else like it.
If you're watching this video and you're taking the time to look into this program and you see this apply, you'll be a better professional and you'll be a better team leader for your firm getting all this knowledge and sharing it back, you should do it. You won't regret it.
Obviously, that's an older video, so pre-pandemic video. That's not the correct application date, but we'll talk about that.
Yes, we will. Thank you, Patty. We appreciate it. So yeah, as you can hear and see, there's a lot of different aspects to the program, a lot of different people that have gone through it. And so we're going to share a quick presentation just to get more information about how the program works, who can apply, what it actually is, what you do in the program. So before I start going, can you all see the PowerPoint?
Yes.
Okay.
We can see the PowerPoint. There we go. Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure I had the right screen before I presented. All right, great. So yeah, what is the Christopher Kelly Leadership Development Program? It's a mouthful to say, and it's fitting because there's a lot in the program. There's a lot to do, a lot to learn, and a lot to engage with. So the background of the program is actually founded in DC in honor of Christopher Kelly, who is a young professional in the field who sadly passed away, but he had accomplished so much, and a couple of his friends really wanted to have his legacy be young professionals growing and learning and continuing to make the profession the best it can be. And so it started in DC, and since then it has expanded quite a bit. We have 8 chapters across the country and more kind of coming online every year. I know we actually all just talked to a group in California, AAA, that is interested in starting a program out there. And so it's something that is kind of always growing and always developing and expanding, which is great to see. And that's the hope, is that we all can network and share these great opportunities with everyone in our field. And that's the important part of this. And so it's been going specifically in, since it was founded for 9 years, it's founded in 2013. And the Detroit chapter specifically is in its 6th year. Are going into our 6th year. So Nikki and I were in the past year, which is the 5th year. And as you kind of heard in the video, it is not just AIA Detroit, we are actually Michigan wide now. And so we are trying to pull in as many people from across the state as we can to get involved. And we hope that we can keep growing our impact. And also, just a side note, and we'll kind of talk about how the program has happened over the years and happened differently. But also the past couple of years, we've actually partnered nationally with different chapters. So I know last year we partnered with AIA Albuquerque and AIA New Mexico, which was also just a great opportunity to meet even more professionals. And that was obviously a unique situation because it was during COVID. So it was a virtual year, and we had a little bit more of that flexibility. But the intent is that this year, we hope to have enough people in Michigan, and it's intended to be in person this year, which is really exciting. And we can talk more about that later on as well. So from the past 5 years of the program and for AIA Detroit and AIA Michigan, we have had 64 people run through the program. As you can see all of their lovely faces here, you might recognize some people. And just over the years, I kind of just wanted to share some images of what the program has looked like. So it's a leadership program where once a month you meet with your fellow scholars in different locations. So typically when it was founded, it was an in-person event. And so people would have the group being held in different firms and different locations across the cities, across Michigan. So it was always intended to be an in-person event where you interact with people, you interact with the speakers that are brought in, and really get that networking experience. They've had panels in the past, and we'll get more into how the program is actually structured. But just to give you an idea of what some of the things have looked like in the past, I was not in this year, but I thought this was funny. It looks kind of like a team building experience. And so there's a lot that can be done with this program. There's a lot of possibilities, and it's kind of up to the scholars, up to those that are in the program to shape what it looks like. And then obviously last year, it was virtual because COVID was a thing, and it still is a thing. But last year, just for everyone's safety, and as we were still learning a lot of things, it was held completely virtual, but it was still an extremely rewarding experience. And like I say, you can see we partnered with New Mexico, so you'll see some NMs next to some of the names up there because we are actually interacting with people from New Mexico, which was a great experience. So who are the scholars? What is this program? Who can apply? So it's really, people might think, oh, it's just architecture, but it's anyone in related fields. So architects, designers, construction administrators and managers, engineers, and beyond. We really want a broad perspective and a variety of disciplines, because that's how we learn, is learning from each other and learning from people who are different than us, but can bring a new perspective to the table. So spread the word if you have people and friends that are interested that may not be architects. Maybe they're landscape designers or beyond. So we really want the program to have a wide breadth of disciplines. So what is this program? Where do we begin? So the program is structured where we have 9 sessions throughout the year. It's a year-long program. This year, it's going to be starting in January of 2023, and it will run through September. We kind of changed the timeline a bit this year just due to some planning exercises and just making sure we were fully ready. So January is when it starts. And so we'll have 9 sessions up until September, one session a month. And it kind of all kicks off with the boot camp. And this is where Nikki and I basically planned the first session, and we'll have it be kind of an introduction in general to the whole program. And so the goal is that we introduce you to kind of the structure and how it works, but we bring in speakers and we bring in different activities to kind of get you in the mindset of what this program can be. And so really, it sounds very broad, but it is supposed to be broad and flexible in that way, because we want you all to bring your interests and your passions to the table. So it's all about working with resources within your network, and then networking with everyone else in the cohort to get different perspectives, different speakers, different experiences for each session. So ultimately, we run the boot camp where we kind of introduce you to the structure of the program and have some interesting speakers, and everyone gets to meet each other. And then each session after that is led by a group of scholars. So you all, if you're in the program, will actually lead and run and organize a session yourself. So one a year. And they're kind of broadly based on different topics. Oops, there we go. So each session kind of has an overarching theme to it, or a topic that we tend to assign, which sounds very structured, but the goal is that you take this topic in a direction that you're interested in. So I can't speak to all of them, but last year my team and my partner and I, we had closing the deal, number 5 there, as you can see on the list. And it was marketing to close the deal. That was our topic. And we were like, well, do we want to talk about how firms market to the community, or how do we market ourselves, or how do we actually, apply for RFIs or RFPs, and that RFPs more so, sorry, in that sense. And my partner and I really were excited more about how you market yourself individually. And so we actually did like a brand creation session. We brought in an expert who did like many workshops with each of the scholars about their personal brands and how you can really promote yourself and your ideals and your vision, so you can take it in a lot of directions. We decided not to go from like the firm perspective, but more from an individual perspective to help people grow their brand as individuals and as architects or as designers or whatever they saw themselves as. So the idea is that each session is based around one of these topics, but it can be taken in a lot of different directions based on your interests and based on your network or who you know. So that the goal is that it's flexible and can be expanded. So how is it kind of structured? So each scholar in the program, we typically have 16 scholars total. So since there are 8 sessions after the boot camp, that means each scholar will plan one session with one other scholar. So you're typically paired up and the two of you will actually plan and create a session. So you'll research your topic, figure out what direction you want it to take. You'll provide resources or speakers for that topic, you know, based on your network are reaching out. We've had people bring in international speakers. We've had people bring in, you know, amazing speakers locally as well. And so it just really depends on where you want to take it. But the goal is that it's all around your topic and is an opportunity for everyone in the cohort to learn more about that topic. And this year, since we are, the goal is to be in person, you would also, part of this whole session organization would be the logistics of finding a venue, actually finding caterers and food if it's going to happen during lunchtime, which it typically is, and also fundraising for your session. And that's part of the leadership aspect, is that it is a responsibility to actually be able to provide some of the funds for the event you're in session you're planning. So it's all kind of tied into how can you make a successful session where people learn, have fun, and grow, and also how do you provide for that? So it's leadership in many different ways. And then you will also, in the whole process of planning your session, you'll have, it's not like you're completely solo. You're going to have 2 check-in sessions with the co-chair, so Nikki and I, at some point in the year leading up to your session, to make sure everybody's on the right track. If you do need help finding certain speakers or connections, or you're having trouble with sponsorship, maybe we can help you out in that sense. But the goal is that it's pretty self-driven. But if, obviously we're a network and we're here to help. So reach out to us and we'll reach out to you and make sure everybody's on the right track. And then within each session, as you can see, we're going down the list here, there's certain requirements for each session. We have to create a small booklet that kind of outlines your agenda and the agenda for the day with speakers and activities and things like that. And so it sounds like a lot, but you're just doing one of the sessions and you have a partner. So don't be too intimidated. It's actually a lot of fun, especially if you get excited about your topic and do take it where you want to go. It's a lot of fun. And so I mentioned there's 9 sessions. So we typically, it's always hosted on Fridays, the session. So it's once a month. And I think this year we said the 2nd Friday of the month, and somebody can yell at me if that's incorrect. But I'm pretty sure it's going to be the 2nd Friday of each month from January to September. And it's run from 12 p.m. to 5 p.m. with a built-in social after. And so you would be responsible for planning a session that runs that time, as well as the social networking event afterwards. And then another aspect of this is you're running one session, but then on one of the other sessions that you're attending, you also will be responsible for taking notes and summaries and capturing images of somebody else's session. So we have great documentation of everyone's work and all the great information we're learning. So there's a lot built into that. I know that's a lot of information, a lot of like how it's running, but we'll obviously have time for questions afterwards. So what else does it take to be in the program? So the program does cost money. There is a tuition associated with it, and that's to help provide all of the items and things we need to run the program. As you said, there's a lot that goes into it, and along with your individual fundraising throughout the program, there's also the tuition, which helps with all the costs associated with it. There is a tuition assistance available, and up to 50% of the cost of tuition can be covered. A requirement of that is that you must be an AIA member in good standing. And we can obviously talk more about that if questions come up. And so this was part of the things we wanted to talk about. So COVID is obviously still a thing. Restrictions have been lessened quite a bit. And I think people are in a good spot where, following the proper guidelines, we feel pretty comfortable hosting it in person this year. So the goal is to have in-person sessions. And obviously, if people are uncomfortable, as a cohort, we can kind of talk about how it exactly looks. But our goal is this year, it will be in person, which I think is really exciting, because there is a lot that comes with having that face-to-face interaction with all of your peers, as well as the speakers. I think it's a really great way to network and absorb more information. But we can obviously have talks as the program develops and if things change. So that was a ton of information and kind of all over the place. But in general, that is the gist of the program. And so really the rest of the time, we're hoping to just hear what questions you have. If I explain something horribly, we can clarify it. And then just as a point, if you guys want to jot it down, we can also share it in the chat. But if there are questions that arise after this information session, we can also reach out through email to that email on the screen, and we will definitely follow up with you. So I'm going to stop sharing because I can't see any of your faces, and that makes me uncomfortable. So I'm going to stop sharing, and if we all want to rejoin the group here, if people have questions, we're happy to answer them.
I see one that came from the RSVPs.
A few
Time commitment. Yeah. Okay. So the first one, if I'm reading it correctly, is the time commitment outside of the sessions. So you would be required to, the idea is you come to all of the sessions, right? So when we were doing it virtually, ours started at 1 o'clock. So I think with the in-person, and maybe Lauren or Patty can correct me if I'm wrong, I think the lunch was from 12 to 1 and the session actually ran from 1 to 5 with a happy hour afterwards, right? So we didn't have that lunch part because we were virtual, right? So your time commitment outside of the session would be when it's your session, you have to prep for it, right? So like we said, you would have 2 meetings prior to your session with us, the co-chairs. And so whatever time it takes for you to develop your booklet, you have to, you do get AIA continuing education credit. So you have to fill out a form and submit it so that we can get that, talking to the speakers, organizing that. So I wouldn't say it's a huge time commitment, and especially for those who are going later on, you have probably a little bit more time. The person who has the first session probably has the least amount of time to get all their stuff together, right? Because boot camp is the first month, and then yours will be a month later. So you have like a month to get it together. But I would say mine ended up being the last session. And so I started prepping for it in January, and ours was in April. But I mean, I already had my speaker in mind by the time boot camp was over, if I got the topic I wanted. So I wouldn't say it takes a whole lot of time, but it would take probably, depending on who you are and how proactive you are in getting your stuff together, that's going to determine the time. And if you want like an hour's range, I would say it would take at least like 2 8-hour days to get all of your stuff together, if that kind of helps.
Yeah, and also just to add on to that, again, remember you're working with a partner. So also, depending on how well you guys delegate and work together and communicate, it's 2 of you. It's not just one person planning a session, which is always really helpful as well. But yeah, to add on to what Nikki said, I think my partner and I last year were pretty proactive as well. And we kind of had a game plan, and that always helps. Just being organized is always helpful. And if you guys are struggling and you're like, oh, I'm having a hard time, that's what those planning sessions with us are for, is to help you get in a good spot and feel not as stressed. So we're here to make it successful, whatever that looks like.
I think the planning sessions with us are like an hour a piece. So that's like 2 hours total. I hope that answers whoever's question. I'm not sure if that person is on the phone now, but if it didn't, let us know. I'll move to the next set of questions. It's a lot of questions in this second one. Is sponsorship additional to the tuition? Yes. Yes, it is. So you pay your tuition, or whoever your firm pays for it, or however that gets paid for. And then part of the idea is learning how to be a leader. You need to know how to talk to people and try to figure out how to fund your session. So,
and we do have a form that spells out the levels that the companies can sponsor at.
Yep.
And to keep in mind, you're not just raising money for your own session, you are raising money to cover the cost of boot camp, graduation, and the lovely AI Detroit staff that support this program year round. So this is intended for you guys to do some of the hard work that is asking for money politely, But the idea is that, at the end of the year, you guys would raise a lot more money than what you are actually spending throughout the entire program. And if you guys have questions about sponsorship, besides the form, we provide a database that shows you like what companies were contacted the years before. And I am a great resource as far as if you need help, if you need follow-up. I am the one that sends out all of the invoices. So, anything money related is definitely something that, we can have good conversations with.
Yeah, and it's not restricted to people in the architecture industry either. So you can get whomever you want or can to sponsor you, right? So
I always suggest, if you are working in the building design industry world, is to take a look at the current projects that you're working on and any of the vendors that you might be working with, and reaching out to them and saying, I'm a part of this leadership program. Would you be willing to, support the session that I am sponsoring or that I am creating? And very rarely will you ever hear someone say no. So
you got to be brave and ask.
You got to be brave and ask. That's right, Nikki.
That's what I learned last year. That was, I think for me, that was the most scary part, right? Because I was like, oh, I thought I paid my tuition. What is this?
Yeah.
What is this? I have to ask someone for some money. Because then I had issues with feeling like I don't want to feel like I owe somebody something. But I mean, if you talk to people, I mean, it's not like you're asking them to fund something crazy, right? And like she said, most people aren't going to say no. They're like, yeah, I'll support you. So, but you have to be willing to ask.
They get representation in the book that you create. They get representation on our website. And depending on what level of a sponsor they are, they actually can get physical representation at your graduation where they actually speak to the audience. So they get a lot of promotion for a small amount of money.
For sure. Okay. We create our own curriculum. Not sure exactly what that means. So what that means is for your session, so whatever your topic is, as Rachel was saying, it can be interpreted how you and your partner want it to be interpreted. So mine was the future of the practice. So me and my partner decided we wanted to talk about data in architecture. We wanted to talk about sustainability, and we wanted to talk about justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. So because that is what we wanted to talk about, that is what it means. Like our curriculum was built around those things, but our topic was the future of the practice. So when you build your own curriculum, whatever your topic is, you can decide how you want to build that session. If you want to have speakers, an activity, a roundtable discussion, what the topics within that overarching theme is, that's what that means. So again, I'm not sure if the person is on the phone who asked that question, but I hope that explains that. Or if you have follow-up questions, let me know. Can one of the letters of recommendation be from the leadership of the firm we work for? Yes. Your letters of recommendation should be strong and come from those who would support you in doing this. That's my advice.
Tell us something that is not on your resume.
There you go.
And, back to the curriculum thing, if you guys are really struggling with figuring out how you want your session to be, we can connect you with previous scholars who have done that session before if you want some additional information. But you also have to think about the fact that if you are going to be in person this year, your speaker can be on Zoom. And so they can be anywhere in the world, and you don't have to pay for them to fly in to speak to the group. And so you can get some pretty high specialty people to speak to your scholar session without needing to do much for them other than advertising them in your book. So it is very flexible as far as what you do in your session, as long as what you are doing relates to the theme that you're given. And it is in the boot camp that you pick your first, second, and third sessions that you're interested in running. And then Rachel and Nikki assign those to the scholars. And so quickly after boot camp which one you were going to get. And in the 5 years that we have done CKLDP, no one has gotten the third session that they picked for. It's always been their first or second choice.
Yeah, it's always been a really, I think I was intimidated by picking the topics at first because I was like, oh no, what if I get one I don't want? But we really do make an effort to make it something you're interested in, because we want people to be excited and interested. And I would say on the curriculum part, don't get intimidated by the word curriculum. It's supposed to be, you be as creative with it as you want. Like, it's supposed to be engaging. It's supposed to be about topics that you're interested in and passionate about. And so it can be anything from speakers, workshops, panels, activities. So don't think about it too structured, I guess, but there's a lot of opportunities and creativity built within that. And I will say, looking at all the topics, there's one called the Art of Negotiating, and I thought that was going to be the most boring topic ever, and it was like the most interesting day I think I've ever had. So you can do a lot with anything. So that's all I'd have to say about that.
Okay. From Estrelita Perez, application differences, requirements for firm nomination versus self-nomination.
Well, Estrelita, I think your letter of recommendation needs to come from somebody else, not yourself. So, so whether or not it comes from a firm or it comes from a family member, it comes from a professor, it comes from a coworker, it is for someone else to speak to your strengths and why you should be part of the program.
And yeah, I'd say echo that. And then I'm not sure if you also meant, like, do you need to be nominated by your firm in order to apply? You don't. You can, anyone can apply. You can apply yourself. I think the only part of the application just to be aware of is that you do need a memorandum of understanding from your employer signed, and that's just stating that they know you're going to be gone half of a Friday every month, the time and commitment to it.
Rachel, can you hear me? Oh,
Yes,
yeah, sorry. I was just, because it says that you could either self-nominate or have the firm nominate you. So I just wasn't sure what that,
You're here, you're showing interest, you're nominated, Estrelita.
Right, congratulations.
Yeah.
But that's,
it just says you could either be self-nominated or firm nominated. I didn't know if that was like a page that needed to be like additional, or I just didn't really understand what that meant. And there was nothing else that talked about it.
Okay, that's actually helpful feedback for us, just language wise of how you're reading it. But yeah, that doesn't mean anything extra. You could just apply as normal.
I have a question about the essay questions. Is there like a preview of those we can see, or like, can you just talk about what those entail a little bit?
Yeah, they should be on the application site. I think they are listed. Let's pull them up. I had it open, surprisingly. Oh,
I just put it in
Lauren's providing the link.
Oh, perfect. Thank you.
And I can share this out too.
So this is on aidetroit.com under committees and programs, Christopher Kelly leadership, and then the apply page. There's a link to this in case you don't save this this PDF right here.
Thank you.
Yeah, and so we can zoom in on these. Oh, because I'm sharing my screen. I always am like, where did everyone go? So I can't see it, but that's okay. But yeah, so we have 4 essay questions, and it sounds intimidating, but 1,000 characters or less is actually not very much. So you have to get good at responding to the point very quickly. But these are the 4 questions. How do you define leadership, and how have you demonstrated leadership skills to this point in your career? What do you feel are the 3 most significant issues and opportunities facing the profession? What are the specific skills or knowledge you hope to gain from participation in Christopher Kelly Leadership Development Program? And keeping in mind that the quality of CKLDP session is determined entirely by the scholars who organize it, what are the specific skills, knowledge you will contribute via your participation in the program?
Thanks for sharing this with us.
And like Rachel said, these 1,000 characters is really testing to see whether or not you are efficient in your answers.
Right.
And please, if you're spelling out Christopher Kelly, please spell it correctly.
Yes. Also, many of you know, and I think at the beginning of the session, you could all tell I have a hard time saying the acronym because it's very difficult. So I usually just say the whole thing.
And I will put in the chat the link to the webpage where the application requirements are listed for everybody to view until they are due on November 4th.
Thank you. Okay, I see a question, and we're going to need some help from probably Lauren on this because our sessions were all virtual, so there was no travel required. We did have an in-person graduation, but that was optional. So can you elaborate on the extent of travel required for the various sessions? Thank you.
Carla, you know, the travel really just depends on where the scholars come from. So right before the pandemic hit, we had a scholar in Kalamazoo, and the coach, the chair that year, Shanita, had a budget that covered her traveling to different areas of Southeast Michigan for different sessions. And then a couple times they went over to the West Coast of Michigan. So they had a session in Kalamazoo, and I think they had another one planned for Grand Rapids. And then the pandemic hit and the whole state shut down. So I noticed in the RSVPs for this session, we had a couple people. We had one person from Saginaw Valley, and it looks like there might be another person from further west of that. So if most people in the final 16 scholars are in the Metro Detroit area, chances are you likely will not spend money traveling outside of the Metro Detroit area. And it's Rachel and Nikki's, they will figure out the budget for potentially going to other sides of the state and what the cost of the hotels and travel will be. So that is not necessarily something that you need to stress about, and will likely not even be finally determined until the scholars have been selected. And no, preference is not given to AIA or not AIA members.
Hi, Lauren, this is Carla. Thanks for
Yeah,
your response.
of course.
I guess I also want to know in regards to travel time as well. So you mentioned hotels. So let's say there was one session that's outside of the Metro Detroit area. Would we anticipate then leaving for that night to stay there for the night and then
I think
having
like
the morning?
that will probably come down to you guys discussing what you wanted to do as a group, you know, because you could drive back from Kalamazoo or Grand Rapids that night. I think the real question is whether or not you're going to want to after the social that you're all expected to sort of attend.
Sure.
You know, and so the mentioning the hotels is just like in case you wanted to stay there overnight and drive back on Saturday morning, or yeah, I'm not Shanita, so I don't know if she was planning for people to like go there the night before.
Mm-hmm.
I can always reach out to her and ask her, but that, you know, if you do have someone that's in another part of the state and you're all going to that person's chapter, there needs to be a discussion at one of the sessions beforehand on how that's going to work and what you guys prefer as far as traveling. And if your guys are going to carpool, if you guys are going to share a hotel room, if there are going to be hotel rooms in general.
Okay, it's just mostly to like advising our offices as to when we'll be away to take into consideration some of those travel times for the morning.
And once the jury has selected the scholars for the upcoming year, and then at boot camp, when you guys pick your preferences for the sessions. Rachel and Nikki will have an idea when they assign the scholars to the sessions, when they might be when the group might be traveling or when they won't be traveling.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Of course.
Thanks, Lauren.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Any other questions?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think the traveling thing was like one of the advantages I think we had was that we didn't have to travel and we got to do a class with someone from a totally different state, but they were in a different time zone, right? So we were in the afternoon our time, but it was like first thing in the morning their time. But it was good to see it like that. I do see there being a lot of benefit with being in person though.
I will say that before the pandemic, the scholars really liked being in person because they actually were a lot more closer with each other, because they were talking to each other during the social sessions after their session, and social hour after their sessions. And some of those scholars are still friends and maintain collegiate relationships even now after years of being away from each other in the CKLDP program. So look at this as a part of not only expanding your own skills as far as leadership goes, but expanding your network to other folks that work in different parts of the industry or different firms that you can call upon and rely upon in future years.
Yeah.
A nuance between the letter of interest and the 4 application questions. Who wants to take that?
I guess, Alita, are you kind of asking the difference between the two? Like they seem similar, therefore why?
I guess, I mean, if I was writing a letter of interest, I was going to include most of those items potentially in the letter of interest. So I don't know, like what the best, if you can elaborate on like a strategy of if the questions are in any way to be elaborated upon, or just there's the questions, don't include any of those in your letter of interest, or the letter of interest is different.
Yeah, there's obviously going to be overlap because I mean it is a leadership program and all of the questions touch on leadership in some way. And I think don't worry about there being, don't copy your answers from don't do that. But I think the intent of letter of interest is that we're really just looking at what motivates you and what captivates you and like why you were interested in this program in the first place, which I think there is some separation of that to the essay questions. I'd say don't overthink it. Don't get too stressed about it. I think we're just really we're trying to get a snapshot of who you are and what you're all about. But I mean, there's obviously going to be a little overlap. But if it's like word for word the same language,
right,
we'll notice that.
Yeah. You should not, when we read it, it should not be the 4 answers to the question should not be your letter of interest. Like, and then we read your answers and then they're exactly the same. As she's saying, it should be why you were interested in joining the program.
Also how you heard about the program, like any connection to past scholars or co-chairs is always good. And you can use that letter of interest to expand upon the answers that you write for the 4 questions. You don't get a lot of room in those 4 essay questions to give us information, and so we don't necessarily know everything about you just from the 4 essay questions. So your letter of interest, which is obviously limited in the fact that it can only be 1 page, but you can tell us more about who you are as an individual and why you would be good as part of this program.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way of saying it. It's almost like the letter of interest is kind of like your cover letter in a sense. If you're applying for a job and those questions are kind of like the interview in a sense. But yeah.
Any other
And in
questions?
case anyone is hasn't looked at the application page, the letters of recommendation and your essay questions are all submitted through a Google form. And that will shut down on midnight on November 5th. So do not wait until 11 p.m. on November 4th to submit it.
That's a really good point. I didn't actually mention the date. Applications are due November 4th, as Lauren just said.
So do we self-submit the letters of recommendation, or do they get a separate link to do that?
You actually self-submit them as PDFs into the Google form. There are options, or there's an area for that. A file upload. And on the CKLDP webpage and in the info packet that was all shared with you, you have Rachel and Nikki's contact information as well as mine. So if you have questions beyond this info session, you can reach out to any of us to get you the right answers and to get you the help or any other information that you might need. Anything else?
Well, if there's no other questions, I think just one thing I just want to say at the end is that this program is a great program. You learn a lot. I've met a lot of great people. Still in contact with a lot of the people from the cohort, even those that were in New Mexico. So it's great and it's really flexible. And I think that's the part I appreciated most, was that flexibility of, virtual versus travel, getting to meet a bunch of different people, making the sessions what you want. It's supposed to be a program where you take charge and you lead on things you're passionate about. And so there's a lot of flexibility built into how you can do that. So I hope you all apply. Thank you for coming.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, everyone. I hope you have a good rest of your evening. I am going to stop recording.